Welcome back. I'm Irvin Kimball, and we're your facilitator for our Experiencing God series. Today we're on Unit 10, Day 2, Discerning God's Will as a Body. That's page 204 in our member guides, and would like to remind you that our memory verse is taken from Romans chapter 12, verse 5. Let me just give you a fundamental truth, and that is that a church comes to know the will of God when the whole body understands what Christ, who is the head, is telling the body. You see, the effectiveness of any one member of the church depends on everyone else in the body, because the body is a group of people that are uniquely interrelated to one another by the work of the Holy Spirit. You see, because the Holy Spirit indwells every believer, and every believer has direct access to God. And that's how the church as a whole gets to know what the body is to do. And so God works through the whole body to reveal his and to perform his will and his purposes. Let me give you a couple of examples of how God is working in different methods through the local church and to make a corporate decision. The church, and one of the first things that the church had to do was to replace the apostle Judas. And in that process, in Acts chapter 1, 26 through 12 through 26, we find the work of the corporate body of the church in the selection process of the apostle that was to take his place, Matthias. Another example of that would be when the 7 deacons were chosen in Acts chapter 6, verses 1 through 7, in order to serve the Grecian members of the church. Another example of that would be when the church was preparing to send Barnabas and Saul, the Apostle Paul, on their first missionary journey in Acts chapter 13, verses 1 through 3, when the whole church came together and discerned the work of Christ and the will of God, that he wanted to reach the Gentile world. These are some examples of how the church collectively works together in order to perform the will of God in the world today. And you see in Acts chapter 15, when the decision was to be made by the whole church, in Acts chapter 15, verse 12, it said the whole assembly was in agreement. And in Acts chapter 15, verse 22, it said the apostles and the elders and the whole church were on one accord. Let me just do a little bit of illustration here concerning the church decision-making process. Here's a question that would be the wrong question. If in the church is asked, how many of you are in favor of this? Or how many of you are opposed to this? That's the wrong question to be asked in the church. The right question is, how many of you sense God is clearly directing us to proceed in this direction or in that direction? You see, it's important to get the feel from what God is doing through the whole church. And the other thing that's important about making a church decision or knowing the church, knowing the will of God, is that God's timing is critical. And it may be expressed in a lack of support, which means that the church may need to watch and wait. You see, as a body, we must wait on God's timing as well as being aware of God's desires. Well, in summary for our lesson on today on the church, let me just go down 5 critical points. Number 1, a church comes to know God's will when the church body understands what Christ, the head, is telling the church. Number 2, every believer has direct access to God. Number 3, individuals' opinions are not as important as God's will. Now that's crucial. Number 4, a church must learn to function as a body with Christ as the head of his church. And number 5, a church must wait on God's timing. I trust that you have been blessed through our devotional time today. And I'd like to ask that you would explore and ask God to reveal a specific truth through the Bible or through our discussion that is really, really profound for you. Write it down and make it in the form of a prayer and ask God to reveal it so that you might experience Him in a new and an intimate way. We're in exciting times here with our experiencing God as we see God working in the church. I'd like to ask if you would join with us by sending us an email or joining us on our Facebook page, and let us know how you're experiencing God in a unique and a special way, particularly in your church. Until the next time.